Hello everyone, welcome to The Green Man. Hope you're doing good and well. So for this Friday's album review, I'm reviewing the 12th full-length studio album from Soulfly and their release Totem, which came out today via Nuclear Blast. The album is 10 tracks and it's 40 minutes in length. Now in Soulfly you have Max Cavalera on vocals and guitars, Zion Cavalera on drums and Mike Leon on bass and backing vocals. Now I'm not hugely familiar with Soulfly actually, or at least with a lot of their previous works. Of what I have heard from them, I have enjoyed. Also pretty obviously familiar with Sepultura, and Cavalier Conspiracy is another project of the Cavaliers which I'm familiar with as well. And you know, it felt like with this particular album they made a very deliberate choice with the sound. This sound was very reminiscent to me of 80s thrash era bands, but also the more modern era bands Power Trip. Certainly with the style and the choices of playing on the guitar here, it reminds me quite a bit of the style of playing that Blake Ibanez adopts in Power Trip. So I really thought that this was an interesting, different sort of a sound that I'd heard before from anything I think I've heard the Cavalier is involved with. But I quite enjoyed it on the whole. This was a fun but perhaps not flawless release from Soulfly. I did think there were, you know, I'll come on to some of what I thought of the tracks later and maybe some of my criticisms, but I did think on the whole you'd probably like this if you've enjoyed some of those projects of the, you know, Cavalier projects of the past, I guess. But yeah, there was you know, there's some really good moments here which I'll also discuss as I break down the tracks in a moment. So let's go on to the tracks. Speaking of the tracks, so beginning with the two singles on the album which were released, I think they were the two singles I heard anyway, Superstition and Filth Upon Filth. Two of the stronger tracks on the album as well for me. Superstition kicks off with a pretty strong opening track. Filth Upon Filth typifies what I was talking about earlier with the sound and the style of this album, with those really kind of, you know, pretty big solos, very echoey solos, and riffs that I say just reminded me quite a bit of that old school 80s era thrash sounds that you're going to get on this album. It's particularly at the front end of the album I found perhaps more that there was more of that style going on. Now, as the album got to its middle was where I lost some interest with tracks like The Damage Done and the title track, and I'll explain. I think that's, well, The Damage Done ended on a pretty strange noise, which sounds like the noise you get when you disconnect a guitar from an amp, which was kind of abrupt, and I wasn't sure about that as a choice for that track. It wasn't bad, but it just didn't do much for me. And then Totem kind of plodded along a bit for a lot of the track, almost a little bit doom metally, but I just didn't really enjoy that track particularly much. Just didn't do a lot for me, not necessarily because of its pacing, but I just didn't find it engaged me very much. Where the album I thought kind of refreshed a bit, if you like, was with Ancestors and with Ecstasy of Gold. Ecstasy of Gold in particular for me is one of the highlights, one of the really big highlights on the album. I really enjoyed that. The chorus was great, had this really cool guitar, you know, variation of guitar riffs I thought on that one was pretty good. Some good guitar harmonies as well coming into that track. Maybe that was something which I tend to gravitate towards anyway, so I did enjoy that track quite a bit. And it, for me, yeah, is the highlight in the album. You also get an instrumental, as you do with Soulfly albums. They go for these, you know, you had Soulfly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and now Soulfly 12. And I quite enjoyed it. Maybe not my favourite Soulfly instrumental ever, but it sort of fit relatively well in the context of the whole album. Certainly of the Soulfly instrumentals I've heard. You know, not one of my favourites probably, but still pretty good in the context of the album. The last track to me, Spirit Animal, a longer cut, you know, slightly like they were going for something epic, you know, to finish with. And in my early listens, I did quite like this track, but as it's gone on, the interest has faded a little bit. So, you know, overall, this album, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but it's a lot of fun, and I enjoyed a lot of what this album had to offer for me, come to think of it. So I'm in a generous mood. So I am going to give this album a 7 out of 10. Do let me know what you thought of this album in the comments. Drop in your favourite tracks if you like as well. Otherwise, from me, just a note about what's coming up on the channel in the coming days, because I've got quite a lot planned for the channel coming up pretty soon, including tomorrow. I'll be doing my first ever tier list format video on the channel, which is going to be exciting as I look back at the horror films I've watched over the summer and putting those into a tier list. So, you know, a bit like the ranking thing if you're not familiar with tier lists. And I, you know, sort of say how much I like each film and put it on a particular tier from, you know, probably from great to very bad. So I'm really excited about that, actually. That's going to be a lot of fun, I think. Well, for me anyway, it's going to be fun. Then, first ever collaboration on The Green Man is going to be happening. It is going to be happening. And I'm going to be doing that with JC Rock and Metal reviews and Chill Dude on a Couch reviews as well. You may have seen me collaborate with them before. Elsewhere on their channel, so this is the first time obviously a community collaboration on my channel, and we're talking about, it's going to kick off my Dark Horse Disc series of videos, and we're talking about Metallica's Death Magnetic. Okay, so an interesting one to begin with, which there's probably going to be, you know, I'm sure we're going to have an interesting debate and discussion about that album. For me, it is slightly overlooked in their discography, which is why it's opening up the Dark Horse Disc series, this new series of videos I'm going to be doing. Lastly, we have Malazan, a book review of the 4th book in that series, which I am trying very hard to get through. I must admit that Malazan is quite a detailed series. It's pretty vast. You have to pay attention to it when you're reading it quite a bit. And, you know, I have had a very busy week this week, just all round, on all sides. So I haven't really progressed too much on Malazan, but I am intending to do that video pretty soon, probably some point next week. Otherwise, from me, thanks always for watching. Drop a like and subscribe if you enjoy any of my content on this channel. Do feel there's lots of videos for you to go back through and enjoy on all things fantasy, sci-fi, horror. Lots of music videos, lots of ranking videos and reviews. Otherwise, from me, take care, everybody. Bye for now. See you next time.